escaping the realm of darkness. The paranormal guys are on a quest to find the answers to the hard questions of where the normal meets the paranormal and the weird, and where the natural meets the unnatural. So grab your holy water, call your mama, and get ready for the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Oh, hello, everybody. This is Neal with Graveside Paranormal Presents the Paranormal Guys podcast. Once again, my name is Neal Gibbons, and this is my co-host,
who prematurely jumps in. Hi, I am Steve Lineweber.
I've heard that about you. You're very premature.
I'm very premature.
I've heard that about you. Well, today's date is 2/18/2023. This episode is going to be coming out on 2/24, which is this upcoming Friday, 2023. This is going to be coming out as soon as possible. The reason why we want it to come out as soon as possible, there's a lot of weird things that are going on in the news. And guess what, boys and girls? The Paranormal Guys are a lot about weird and talking about the weird, aren't we, Steve?
Yes, we are. We're all about that weird. And you know what's really cool about this week, though? It's a double feature.
It's a double feature. It's a double shotgun. Boom. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yesterday, when this airs, as of yesterday, we have put out the Demonology Dark Matters podcast with Bishop Christina Rake. Awesome episode. If you haven't seen it, go check that out.
Yeah, that was a live one that we did, Dark Matters. That was a lot of fun in front of a live audience. We had a really good time. We were welcomed in by Side Street Studios, Nick Mataragas. Really nice guy, really cool dude. We were also helped out by Pat and from Ghostly Society, Ghostly Podcast. He really helped us out. He was able to record everything for us, which is easier, of course, for Steve. It makes his job a lot easier because he's the brainchild behind making sure that all the recordings and all the videos are put up, which we appreciate here at the Paranormal Guys podcast. Steve, what's going on?
Well, we just got done with the Roth House Valentine's Day last weekend, and it was really cool. Neal, I know you were in Vegas having fun, and you made a lot of money.
I made a lot of money. We won't even talk about that. So
we had some really cool guests come out and join us for the Roth House investigation. We had a really great time. Shell Ward led the investigation. She had cookies. We had somebody bring a lady by the name of Whitney. She brought this amazing cheesecake.
Oh, really?
It was so good. It was blueberry on top.
Blueberry?
It was really good. Yeah. Blueberry.
Blueberry.
And and we met some really cool people. One guy was a pilot, Neal. You would have been totally him and his fiance, they came on one of our ghost tours.
Yeah, no, his first name is Omar. We talked over I met him in October. Him and his lady. We talked for quite a long time. He really liked him and his girlfriend. I don't know, but they both really liked the product that we had for the ghost tours. And I told them about the Roth House, and they said, "Oh, we're in." And sure enough, the minute we put that out, he messaged me and he said, "Neal, can I get in on that?" And I was like, "Of course, dude." And
great time.
Yeah, it was a really good time. Really good time.
They enjoyed themselves, and I got to ask them a question because, on our tour, we don't have as much time. But I said, "Hey, look, as a pilot, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on lately, right? With unidentified objects in the air." I said, "Have you ever seen one?" And he told me, he's straight up, he's like, he has not, but he's had conversations with other pilots that have, and so it's it's a thing. You're flying a plane, and you're just going for hours, and you'll see something odd every now and then.
Yeah,
and then some pilots are like, "I don't know if I should talk about it," and then, but eventually they do, and then stories are shared amongst pilots. Very cool stuff. A lot of weird stuff going on in the world today. And as a matter of fact, we should just jump into some weird news. What do you think?
Well, do you have something for us?
I do. Before we jump into the news, I'll play a little something for you, okay? A little TikTok.
Okay, sounds good.
That summarizes things, and then we'll jump right into the news.
All right.
This is what's going on.
Terrifying list of weird and unexplained things happening all over the U.S. this past week.
People were sleeping at 4 a.m. The first powerful 7.8 magnitude quake rocked southeastern Turkey and northern Syria.
12 sinkholes have opened up in Turkey.
It has happened again for the third day in a row and the fourth time in just 9 days. The United States has shot down an unidentified high-flying object.
Footage of the UFO shot down over Alaska.
An unidentified cylindrical object caused a fighter jet to malfunction as they came closer to shooting it down.
Black one.
Alien sighting in Australia.
Holy crap.
What do you want? What the fuck? Why are you walking away?
Now, first off, the last thing on that thing, or that's from Australia, Steve?
Yeah.
That thing that looks like an alien? I don't know. But if I was somebody and I saw something like that, I'd be like this. I don't know if I could talk. I mean, I don't know if that one's real. That last one's real.
That's not an alien. This is an alien.
This is an alien.
Australians, I don't know. They kind of have a different reaction.
Yeah. I mean, it was very odd. I mean, the way he acted. Where are you going, pal? We were going to have a drink. Come on.
They're used to seeing a lot of crazy stuff, though. Like, they got like kangaroos and marsupials in Australia. They see a lot of weird stuff every day. So maybe an alien didn't really shock them.
Maybe it's okay.
Down under?
It's down under, dude.
It's just like, what the?
But other than that, though, there are a lot of weird things that are going on, and that's what part of this episode that we're doing. We're going to be talking about with Mr. Sam Maranto, Illinois Director of MUFON, very soon. You know what? It's great that you brought this up as part of our news today.
Can't get into news without our intro to the news.
Let's do the news. Let's talk about what's going on.
Let's do some weird news.
Right. All right. So usually we get right into the weird news and we have like articles for everybody, but what we're going to be talking about is kind of like that video that was seen and a little bit more about what's been going on since I believe February 4th. Number one, we have all these. It started February 4th where like balloons were seen in the sky, and they were supposedly from China, Steve. Yeah. And they didn't know if they were secret balloons or that
Chinese
they were
spy balloon
or Chinese spy balloons, or they were supposed to be used for weather. Whichever the fact, it sure did take a long time for the government to shoot it down.
They let it fly all the way across the country. And you know what? It went over some pretty like secret places where we have military installations and
pretty elaborate. I mean, saw a lot of the definition of the land, you know?
Mm-hmm. And they didn't want to shoot it because they didn't want to like hurt anybody in the middle of nowhere. In Montana was the excuse. And so they let it fly all the way across, collecting data, probably transmitting data. And then they shot it over the Atlantic. Kind of odd. And then they started shooting stuff down on the regular afterwards, like at least like 3 other things that were probably like...
You know, and since the new year started, there's been a lot of weird things that are going on. I mean, like take for instance those sinkholes that we just saw, or that TikTok thing. What's going on in the world? I mean, for people who are out there, I want you to email us. Tell us what you think is going on out there. We showed you the TikTok video you've seen on the news, derailments of railroads. You know what, Steve? Let me get this straight.
Derailments too.
All right. So The recent Ohio train derailment, in which carriages from a 150-car Freightliner carrying the toxic chemicals crashed off the tracks in the town of East Palestine, is just one or more than a dozen rail accidents reported to have already taken place in the U.S. since the start of this year, 2023, Steve. Newsweek counts no fewer than three further accidents in South Carolina, so that means they've had three more in South Carolina alone already this year. Near Lake City on the 9th of January, near Loris January 21st, and another near Honoré February 12th, as well as two in rural California. One each in metropolitan Detroit and Philadelphia, and others in Alabama, Alaska, Louisiana. I read that rail accidents actually are relatively common in the U.S., Steve, although the consequences are seldom as much as dramatic, meaning that we've been noticing it more on the news as usual. Okay? But remember, we're only in February. We're not even 60 days into the new year. A guy by the name of Steve, his name is Steve also, Stephen Dittmeyer, a former top official at the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, Steve, told investigative news outlet The Lever that the severity of the crash may have been aggravated by the lack of electronically controlled pneumatic brakes, ECP. Now, I remember Barack Obama, during his administration, he put out a thing for the guidelines of that to make it stronger on certain guidelines for trains, that the brakes, but they're also saying that it may be also a lack of employees that might be causing some of this to happen, that people aren't coming to, work, or it's a lack of the tools that they need, or some of this equipment, the ECP brakes.
Well, they also put in, they're supposed to have like around 60 or 70 cars on a train, and they've been overloading them with 132 cars. And if you look at the train tracks in Ohio, they're not good. They're wobbly. Trains kind of move across them, and they kind of like, it's like a rickety rack kind of like motion. The tracks aren't good. Brakes aren't going to fix that. In East Palestine, there were talk about like how about 20 miles down the line, they were reporting the train was like on fire, or one of the cars. That wouldn't have been fixed by brakes, I don't think.
I don't know either. I mean, you and I, we're not engineers. We don't work for the railroad. But here's what's odd is, in this past week, like I said, today's day is the 18th of February. Within the last 7 to 10 days, I believe there's been at least 3 to 4 derailments. Now, coming from a United States citizen point of view, I started wondering about, because a lot of them are chemicals, derailments, is there some kind of terrorism?
Could be.
Is there an agenda? Or is it like they said, that these are just very common things, maybe lack of equipment or older equipment, but us being like, because we talk about conspiracy theories and this and that, we kind of make it part of the subject because there's a lot of weird things going on right now, like we talked about in that TikTok video at the beginning. Sinkholes.
It's like a really weird time to be alive.
Yeah.
It's like some people say that we're in World War III right now, with everything that's going on. It's just like, it's not public yet. And then you get like UFO stuff, and then you got like chemical plants. You got trains and chemicals, and you got like in Kissimmee, Florida, just a few days ago, there was a big plant that caught on fire. It's like almost like 4.5 acre plant, just burning chemicals into the air.
And again, you know what?
Like really bad.
And I'm sorry, take for instance, you and I were talking earlier about the chemical spills that were going on. And I remember watching a video of this lady near some kind of creek and she was showing the water, and then she put a stick in it and waved it around, and all this oil is coming up, and the community is being told, in Ohio is being told, no, the water's fine. Water's fine.
Water. The chickens are dying.
Keep wearing a mask.
Animals are dying. The fish are dying. Earthworms around the creeks are dying. But the water's safe, from this. But wear a mask because masks protect you.
Yeah.
Like an overwhelming amount of caution on one thing and then a lack of caution on another. It's weird. There's even like a chemical spill in Arizona recently. A truck overturned on the expressway, and there are people driving through this orange gas of nitric acid. I don't know if you caught that in the news.
Yeah.
And there's just all these chemical disasters. So
right, and I'm saying, and I'm not saying it was a terrorist act. I just want to be completely understood about this. But coming from a normal citizen's point of view, you see things like this, and you have a president that is not, or the administration, or lack thereof, is really bringing out anything, telling us really too much about it.
Right.
And same thing with the UFO stuff, supposed UFO stuff. There's a lack of communication.
And they're saying that they shot down like these unidentified objects, and they're saying, "Oh, beware!" And like maybe it's UFOs and stuff. While I think you sent me this article.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that when we get with Sam.
Yeah,
and we're going to bring out some more stuff.
Well, let's talk a little bit about predictive programming, because we did an episode on that recently with Doug Rodriguez, and you remember the show that was on Netflix? I didn't catch it, but I've been hearing a lot about it. It was a Netflix program called White Noise.
Yeah, right.
And there's a little predictive programming in that about kind of what we're seeing in Ohio. And it's weird how this stuff comes out, and then just a little bit later, a real event happens. And remember what Doug was talking about, like maybe this predictive programming stuff is a way to mind control people. So you kind of like introduce something to them, and so that it becomes part of their psyche, and then you make the real event happens, and then they just accept it, then oh well. But if it's just a weird paradigm with predictive programming. Well, this was on Netflix. I'm going to show this clip real quick. That's cool.
Okay.
All right. So this is from a program called White Noise on Netflix.
Right.
A little predictive programming there.
So one of the things is that I was watching some of this thing with you. It's where he's talking, the actor in there. I remember him from Star Wars. Yeah, he's from Star Wars. He's talking about it, and slowly as he's talking, they're going to segment scenes of this train slowly coming towards a exit gate and a crossing, and something where it gets derailed because a truck goes through it, which has chemicals on it as well. I mean, once again, could these just be common things that, like they said in the Newsweek's article, that this is something that does happen? Accidents do happen. I'm not saying they don't, and I'm not trying to
distraction
behind it, but all at once, it hasn't even 60 days into the year.
It's a distraction. There's a lot of other things going on in the world they don't want you to think about. There's the economy. There's World War III. There's a lot of things that, like, if we realized, we might actually panic a little bit. So maybe this is kind of a distraction.
Maybe it is. I did read something like that, or I listened to something on I think it was a podcast broadcast. Is this a distraction from something else that's going on? It's not the first time that it's happened in any world history where you distract somebody so they don't know that something else is going on. But there's a hell of a lot of distraction in the last less than 60 days, like I said, since the new year. A lot.
2023 is going to be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, we're only so much into it. I think a little bit in 35 days.
Yeah.
Sit back, ladies and gentlemen,
Enjoy the
and
ride.
get ready for 2023.
Yeah.
And this is a special broadcast. What's going on with all these sightings of UFOs?
Yeah.
So sit back, relax. Like I said, we're going to bring on Illinois Director of MUFON, Mr. Sam Maranto, a good friend of ours. And we're going to try to get the answers. And we're going to try to maybe come up with different scenarios of what possibly can go on. And we want you, our listeners, which we cherish so much, send in what you think is going on to Neal, Neal, at gravesideparanormal.com, or Steve at gravesideparanormal.com, or info at gravesideparanormal.com. And with that being said, Steve, let's get right into the subject at hand. UFOs. What in the heck is going on? Boo.
Hello there, this is Betty, and I'm here to tell you about Graveside Paranormal, the YouTube channel for all things paranormal. As someone who has been in the entertainment industry for many, many years, I've seen and heard some amazing things. But nothing quite compares to the mysterious and intriguing world of the paranormal. That's why I'm such a big fan of Graveside Paranormal. The hosts of this channel are two normal guys with a passion for all things spooky. And trust me, they deliver. From ghost sightings to UFO sightings, they cover it all. And the best part? They make it all so much fun. So if you're a fan of the paranormal or just looking for a good scare, I highly recommend subscribing to Graveside Paranormal. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a single episode of the Paranormal Guys podcast. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and join the paranormal party. I'll see you there. Boo.
And now, back to the Paranormal Guys podcast.
And we're back. All right, we're back to the Paranormal Guys podcast. I hope you really enjoyed the news that we were talking about and all the messages that we had from Graveside Paranormal as the Paranormal Guys podcast as well. Now, Steve, we have a returning guest when we used to do Spirits by the Graveside, and this will be his first time on the Paranormal Guys podcast. We have a Mr. Sam Maranto who's going to be coming in. Sam Maranto has been the state director of Illinois' MUFON Mutual UFO Network and a certified field investigator for over 20 years. Sam has been involved in two major mass sightings investigations, Tinley Park and Rockford in Illinois, as well as numerous other investigations throughout a period of over 10 years. His research into UFO phenomena started in 1964. He is also a UFO witness and had his first sighting in 1959. First, we're going to play a little clip, and we're going to lead right in with Sam. We're going to ask him what's going on with all these sightings. Steve, run that clip from ABC News, please.
Now to the objects shot from the sky over the U.S. and Canada, and tonight for the first time, the dramatic new audio from the fighter pilots tracking those objects. Tonight, the White House on what they're calling the leading explanation of what these were and why some lawmakers are demanding to know more tonight. Here's Martha Raddatz reporting again tonight.
Tonight, dramatic cockpit audio from F-16 fighter pilots tracking that as yet unidentified flying object over Michigan's Lake Huron on Sunday.
The size of it, it's just so slow and so small and you can't see it.
In the audio recording verified by the Air Force, the Air National Guard pilots whizzing past the object, trying to avoid a collision and struggling to describe their target.
I'm going to call it like a container. I can't really tell, though, what the shape is. Definitely smaller than a car.
Sometime later, the fighter jets launched a $500,000 missile at the object and missed.
And in this case, the missile landed harmlessly in the water of Lake Huron. We tracked it all the way down.
A second missile hit the object. The wreckage remains at the bottom of Lake Huron. The two other objects shot down over the last 5 days in Alaska and Canada have also yet to be retrieved. But today, the White House saying the intelligence community's leading explanation is that the objects could just be balloons tied to some commercial or benign purpose.
They are
All right, I welcome in Mr. Sam Maranto, MUFON. Hey, Sam, how are you today?
Sam?
Oh, fantastic. And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I cannot complain, at least not yet. But there's always somebody there, Sam.
It's usually me.
It's usually him. So, Sam, as you know, like it came from the ABC News, there's been a lot of mass sightings. The first one was February 4th, which we knew supposedly came from China as in a balloon, either as a spy balloon or a weather balloon. And then we had February 10th off the Alaskan coast, February 11th off the Yukon in Canada, and February 12th, Lake Huron. What's going on? What do you think is going on?
Well, I think it's finally getting to the point where they're actually getting the retooling some of the radar and, as far as the intelligence equipment, that they're able to pick up things that they were not able to pick up before. And some of them are, of course, prosaic explanations. But yet, it's sort of interesting, I would have to say, when you have this weather balloon that was containing sensitive surveillance information or ability to grab some of that, and they eventually shot the darn thing down, I think it was in the Atlantic over, close to Myrtle Beach. So, the problem is we have UFOs, UAPs, flying amongst the sky and doing so in locations that they're not supposed to be in. Very sensitive locations. Many times around nuclear power plants, ships that are nuclear powered, etc. So they've become a very serious problem, even when it comes to, let's say, for instance, commercial air flight. They're there. Now, this isn't what they're talking about in these instances. It seems as though these objects have been either floating and been tracked for a long period of time or have been stationary. Mainly the one that was shot down over Lake Huron. The one up in Alaska, I'm still very uncertain about. The description of that seems to be somewhat cylindrical and not appearing...
Like a tic-tac.
Yeah,
right?
Much more along the line of the tic-tac. And that isn't, of course, something that you would expect to see as a balloon, nor did that appear to be what the pilots of the F-35, and I think the other one was an F-22, or it could have been two F-35s, both of them stated that didn't look like anything like a balloon. So here you have descriptions. We had one individual having problems with the electronics in the cockpit. Another person saying, no, we didn't have any issues. So you have conflicting data from pilots, and also each said that it did not look like a balloon. So what the heck are they doing shooting $500,000 ordnance at balloons? Now, is this something from Hobby Lobby, or is this something from some experimental program? We don't know. Hundreds of thousands of balloons are released each year, many of them associated with scientific research, others just for fun. The bottom line is this does take place. They need to be tracked to some degree, and they do cause problems, especially for air traffic. So in that 40,000 foot range, this is real serious. Above that, not so much, except for, say, for instance, very high flying military jets. But I understand what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say to some degree. But this isn't pertaining to the genuine articles of UAPs that you and I know exist.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like they're just a little more sensitive. Like you said, they calibrated their equipment a little bit better, and so they're seeing stuff that's typically not a threat, and maybe it was kind of a show, like we're gonna take that out. We're going to take out that birthday balloon, maybe. And,
Now, Sam, is there an official statement yet from MUFON of what they think is going on?
Nothing yet, as far as anything official from our side. And I think when it comes to this whole AARO, the new office, the ARROW office through the DOD, the All Domains Office of Surveillance and Monitoring, this is really sensitive as far as the involvement of certain groups. MUFON, their involvement with them would probably be through another group, though there is talk in Washington, and our folks have been talking with people up there. So the civilian element is very crucial as far as manpower. We've been doing this for years. 53 years we've been looking into this phenomena, and quite well, as far as assembling the data. There are a few other groups that are involved right now, and they're employing very sophisticated manners of sorting out the data. And one is called the Enigma group. So there are these other groups that are trying to work in concert with the ARROW program and bring more light to this information or this dilemma, because it is a problem. And how do you address it? It can't be ignored anymore,
Right.
No, it really cannot be ignored anymore. I mean, it is kind of, I think, freaking out people a little bit, because they don't know. One minute you're being told on the February 4th that this is a balloon, but then sometime later after that, people are saying that these are almost like your tic-tac type spherical objects that people are seeing, and something was shot down over the ocean, even though it went into Lake Huron. But just in today, on the 18th of today's date of February 18th, the U.S. ended a search for remnants of aerial objects shot down over the Alaskan airspace and Lake Huron. So that was just in today by NBC Chicago. Why would they end that?
Well, it was probably too small, and they probably made the assessment already that this was something benign and prosaic. So therefore, why even pursue it anymore? It just complicates the situation. Though I do recall looking as far as radar, aviation radar, it did seem like there were helicopters in that area on the up into the to Monday, I believe. I was looking there. There was still some sort of activity in that area. They did have an AWAC up there. They did have the two planes, the F-16s. There may have been another intelligence plane that was sent up. I don't know what sort of, say, naval or Coast Guard related activity was going on, but I think there was probably some joint effort as far as agencies. The thing is, that one and the one over the Atlantic, that Chinese balloon, we knew our balloons. Now these two other ones, they're mysteries still. Now, does that mean these are genuine unidentified aerial phenomena? Most likely not. We don't know. But in the same token, there are attributes, with the five characteristics that would be attributable to UFOs we're not seeing. And that, has to do more so with maneuverability, ability to cloak, transmedium, as far as going into the water, coming out of the water, and going into outer space, etc. So there's different attributes that were not seen, except for the fact that they didn't see any form of propulsion. There were no wings, there were no engines, etc. And it seemed to be hovering more so. I guess there was enough weather that would have moved it around if it was servant to the wind. So those two do leave you wondering, what on earth was that, doesn't it?
Now, one of the things is that is our technology nowadays, because they shot one missile was shot and it missed, but the second one hit the object. Are we getting better technology to keep up with whatever maybe possible UFO activity, alien-like activity, that we can interfere with them now, do you think?
Well, that's a funny thing you mention. Are we capable of engaging these objects? Well, back in the late 40s and into the 60s, we had a standing order to shoot them down. And I say we, I'm saying the military in general, Air Force more so. And during that period of time, numerous, and I'm saying numerous, planes met with disaster, and pilots were lost, planes were lost. Strangely enough, that information was in the news during that period of time. You would never see anything like that today. Now, are we performing that same directive? It seems that command has been in place now, or put in place. If it doesn't come down or doesn't respond, it's going to be engaged. Now, is that going to be the case in point for every encounter? I don't know. And are we willing to?
And it wasn't the case with the China.
Yeah, I mean,
the China spy
China,
balloon.
they shut it down, but that was China. We knew who it was.
Yeah.
Now, when it's one of these UAPs, a genuine article, something that is truly unusual, that could literally outperform anything that we could even imagine. You know, I get a kick out of it. They were talking about, well, today we have this technology. We could go at different, speeds. We get up to possibly as high as Mach 13 or whatever. Well, back in, the days of Project Blue Book back then, they had those recorded as going as fast as 47,000 miles an hour. Back then, we didn't have anything remotely conceivable like that. I don't know if we're in the capacity of something like that today. Maybe reverse engineered or done advanced technology.
Right.
We never know.
Right.
But can we shoot them down? Yeah. I mean, back then we even had a few planes with these multiple servos that would shoot rockets out that would disturb their electronics or anti-gravitics, and they would crash. So we did have the ability to knock them down. One other ability to knock some of these things down was actually use of certain radar systems that interrupted the electrogravitic technology that they used. So in other words, if they had it then, I'm assuming we have definitely advanced beyond that.
Now, speaking of when I was talking about that, might freak some people out. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana has advised citizens to lock your doors following a classified briefing to lawmakers on the unified objects shot down over the weekend. 4 objects have been shot down over North America airspace since February 4th. The first was identified by the Pentagon as a Chinese surveillance, as we know. But the U.S. Department has not confirmed the nature of the remaining 3 objects. And he's telling everybody to basically lock your doors. Is he freaking people out, or is he right by saying what he's saying?
I would say he's right from what he was briefed on, which is not told to the public. And what we're hearing is basically the wrapping of what's inside of this major present. And again, it's distraction and distorting the facts. I think these incidents may have been the perfect scenario to move away from this topic, because it's getting a lot of people interested in learning more. And to tell you the truth, I don't even see of the calls that I have that I did receive are very few media, very few, which is odd. Usually get more. And people seem to be rather level-headed, interested, but level-headed. You know, it's like it's a given that we're not alone. A, these things have been with us throughout the course of human history. B, and 3 is if they really truly wanted to, at least some aspect of them or some component of them, if they wanted to, we could have been alleviated a long time ago. So again, it's not a matter of good, bad, or indifference. I think it's purely a matter of, quite simply, we don't know. And when it comes to an agenda, that could change in a heartbeat if we take a hostile position. And that's another concern of mine. But maybe they know far more than me, and I would hope so.
Right. Yeah, they have
you
that
know,
special
again,
stuff.
everything I say is my opinion, by the way. So, and it's a little more than opinion.
Yeah, and you know what? And I like to think in this day and age, and we've had the show about predictive programming, that they're already setting the sights for you to accept these things. By all the shows and video games and whatever else media-wise things that come out, it's a slow progression to have you accept, so that when these things do happen, it's like, no big deal.
There's, look at your cartoons, everything. In fact, Disney years back was supposed to be the ones to break this information. I don't know if you knew about that, but they were going to be the ones to break the reality of us not being alone, an extraterrestrial or multi-dimensional reality, whatever. And we're dealing with a multiplicity of phenomena. That's what makes things even more complex. It's not one they, it's a multiplicity of things.
Right.
So that was supposed to take place during the Reagan administration. That was put on hold. This was supposed to take, many a time there was an effort to bring this information forward. You know, you'd hear, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Well, in 52, they damn near did. There was 90 incursions over Washington, D.C. During July of 1952.
There's been talk that recently there's a camera pointing at the White House, right? And at nighttime, I don't know if you guys heard of this, where there's like anomalies in the sky that are being picked up by the camera in the evening.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, landing on the White House lawn might not be too far-fetched.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a serious uptick, Steve. Serious uptick. And one thing I did find interesting, we have a division in MUFON that handles basically, it's called an ERT group for extraterrestrial encounters, research group. And it's to serve a benefit people, like a sounding board for individuals to speak to other individuals that understand what they're going through. And at the same time, it helps us assess what may be going on under all this. There may be some forms of communication, and we're learning, that we're learning things take place. And not every encounter is exactly wonderful. So, I mean, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress that does take place in some instances, not all. Some are very, very enjoyable. But the uptick on that has been pretty high.
Now, one other thing is, now we've been getting UFOs, UAPs. Is there been a kind of like an uptick of people seeing aliens?
Yes. Encounters, per se, yeah. And I would prefer to use encounters versus, say, for instance, we mentioned before, abductions.
Right.
Because that may not be the case in point. Understand, this is how I would look at things, that the encounters or experiences are more clinical. And as much we are looking at another species and trying to analyze it or come to terms of what they may be. Many of these individuals may be explorers and scientists in as much the same way we are. They could be equally as inquisitive. The other thing is there may be a long-term necessity for this interaction with some of these individuals. It all boils down to, as I mentioned, I don't know how many times, and you probably heard it more than enough from me, it's about who we are, what we are, and why we are. Their component is just one of the hubs in the scenario. So I mean, it's more about us than anything else.
Steve and Sam, I gotta stop you for a minute. It's that time again. Into the Shadows with Shell.
Attention, all lost souls. It's time to get into the shadows with Shell.
A Palpable Trance by Shell Ward. Shimmering lights in the sky caught the first officer's steadfast eyes. Buzzing planes, oh what a sight. Flying spacecrafts, unidentified as the objects perform their dance. Tension builds into a palpable trance. What message do they bring, if any? Is this a warning or just a viewing spree? The pilots scramble to the tower as the UFOs display their power. Lights flicker, engines stall as the aliens make their warning call. Passengers gape in awe and fear as the spacecraft gets closer and near. What do they want? Why are they here? Questions unanswered leaves people in fear. The sightings end as quickly as they came, leaving many puzzled, asking for names. The runways return to normality, but the UFO will still remain a mystery. We wonder what lies beyond our sight, what secrets hide in the stars' bright light. We keep on watching, filled with hope that someday soon we'll learn to cope.
And now, back to the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Thanks, Michelle. That was awesome. As usual, you always do a great job. So, Sam, about like back to the aliens, and people are probably seeing aliens more often, just as much as they're seeing UFOs. Is there also an uptick, probably in abduction? Do you know from the MUFON community?
The encounters aspect, yes, there seems to be more encounters recently being reported. Doesn't mean that it's taking place more. It's the same thing with UAP or UFO reports. Now remember, UAP, UFO reports, 90% of them can be discounted one way or another as something prosaic, or there isn't just enough information. We get the occasional hoaxing too. So it's only a small percentage that may be genuine. And people think, well, really, that's awful. Then there's probably nothing to it. No. You could do a lot of shoveling, a lot of material to get some gold. And if that's the case in point, well, maybe you just don't want to shovel, tons and tons of gold to get a few grams of tons of soil to get a few grams of gold. The bottom line is we take the reports. People do a lot of misidentifications, and they file these reports. And when they do that, it isn't something that we frown at. What we do is we educate them on astronomy, on observation, etc. And that only in turn will just make them better observers. And in the end, when they do see something absolutely genuinely unusual, it's easier to work with them. But
go ahead.
So it's the reports that are coming in, and the reason why we're getting more reports is because of the popularity, I would say, more so than the incidents.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense.
Everyone's looking at the sky right now.
Yeah, everybody's. You know what? So what's odd about that is so I was at work, my normal job, right? And it was about maybe 8 o'clock at night, and it was snowy the other day, and I'm doing a round, what we would call a round, and I'm outside doing a perimeter check, and I'm looking up in the sky because, we were going to have this show, and I said, well, I need to pay attention a little bit more. So I'm looking up in the sky, and I see this blinking light up in the sky, and like it goes off, and it goes back on, and it goes off, and it goes back on. And I tell somebody I work with, hey, come here for a second. Tell me what you think you see here. He goes, hey, stupid, it's a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but
you couldn't hear it?
Black. It was pitch black out, and it looked like what happened was after I said it to him, that's when it turned, and you could see the red and the green light or blue light. He goes, hey, stupid, it's a helicopter.
You couldn't hear it? You couldn't hear it?
No, I couldn't hear it.
Oh, wow.
It gets the best of us, especially when they stack at night. On a Friday when they're coming in, you have all these flights coming in over northern Indiana. They're stacked up, and people are looking like, oh my God, there's triangles out there. And no, it's just stacked planes. And you watch them turn, and all of a sudden you start to see the navigational lights, and then things change. But that's normal. It's a matter of perspective. And that's why it's so important. Yeah, you don't pick on people. You say, well, let me explain what it is. And, we check Flight Radar 24, which is wonderful. There's a few other programs. And you bring it up and say, no, this is what you saw, because we're able to tell exactly which plane you saw, which flight, at what time, and where it was at. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, they're just so amazed by that. And that's great. But, the thing is, yes, the majority of the reports coming in are still the same. We have an uptick of course, and sadly, because of this amount of news and everything, there's an uptick of hoaxes. I've received kites, photographs of kites, obvious airplanes that you could see in focus, and they intentionally take them out of focus, coming into Midway. And of course, they came from Tinley Park. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, here's a location that we've had multiple sightings of genuine things. But you get this, the kind of nonsense you get, reactive to. And on the news, you get that reactive nonsense too. Yeah. And that's sad. Right. Because
it's also kind of like a distraction.
It is a distraction.
There's a lot going on in the world, Yeah.
And because it was a distraction and it really deflated people, it done more harm than good. So in other words, was that a modus operandi? Was that something they intended to do? Was that something they wanted to deflate this? Well, how more perfect is there a scenario when you have people talking on the news, very respected people saying UFOs were sighted over Alaska and Canada, and they were shot down, after they've been startled by the Chinese balloon. Oh my God, now we have an invasion. Then it's deflated to just being balloons, and we're wasting, $500,000, $470,000 rockets, missiles, and knock them down. Yeah, it deflates it, doesn't it? It really does deflate it.
It does. Yeah. There's this conspiracy theory that about the government wanting to have a fake alien invasion, right? To sort of usher in a new world order type of thing. And I actually have a little clip of that that I want to show you. I'm curious because right now we're going through a lot of geopolitical tensions and changes in the world, and economic changes possibly with our dollar, and a lot of things that crypto might bring in. But it all goes back to a one world type of governance. So I want to play this real quick, and I just want to talk about it a little bit. So here's a little bit about a fake alien invasion conspiracy theory, stuff I like. Here we go.
The mind control media has been spotlighting recent reports on UFOs being spotted and even shot down out of the sky. And many suspect it's laying the groundwork for the so-called fake alien invasion that has been reported on now for decades. A false flag event wherein the public is tricked into believing that aliens from outer space are invading the Earth. In his 1991 book, Behold a Pale Horse, William Cooper claimed that secret groups within the U.S. government have designed their own flying saucer technology and are planning to launch a staged alien invasion in order to create a one-world government.
What I discovered was amazing. What I discovered, ladies and gentlemen, is that there has been a plan in existence since about 1917, and probably before that, to create an artificial extraterrestrial threat to this Earth in order to create a one-world totalitarian socialist government.
Nazi scientist and former head of NASA, Wernher von Braun, reportedly told his assistant, Carol Rosen, that a fake alien invasion will be the final gambit of an ongoing plan to create a one-world government.
And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat.
Yeah, so that whole report is on reesereport.com. I think it's interesting. I know that there's a lot of legitimate cases of UFOs, but most of them are kind of like, fake or misinterpretations and such. What I'm curious about is if the governments of the world wanted to create a distraction about a major change happening, is a fake alien invasion something out of question? Or
me personally, I don't think so. You know what? And before it gets to Sam, I'm sorry, Sam. Is that take for instance Ronald Reagan back in the 1980s?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when he was in front of everybody at the world? I forget where his stage he was on, but he said, wouldn't it be weird if all of a sudden we had an outside force invade us all, and how all the world could come together and we would be unified? Is it predictive programming?
Right.
Is it kind of like a subtle hint? I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
It goes the spectrum. In other words, UFOs were excellent cover for, let's say, for instance, various planes that we had, X-class planes, next generation or 2 generations out, or today maybe even 3 or 4 generations out. So that was excellent cover, and so it worked. It was a double-edged sword. Yet, then we have the actual case in point where we have an incursion. Now it's a different animal. And by the way, when they're present over any sort of facility or urban area, it is always considered a threat. In other words, it's taken on as being a threat. It's not a welcome wagon. They want them out or shot down. There is no in between. That's what happens. Now, is this a perfect scenario to have a some sort of false flag event, and have this? And first of all, be pretty complex, but it's always doable. I would assume. The other thing is, most people don't even look out their damn windows. So all you got to do is put it up on the news, and you have some graphic art. And today you could do amazing things with digital technology. And you could scare enough people into believing any darn thing. The end result is you have it cascades. You have the panicking. And there's enough known about each and every one of us in our social our groups, especially, for instance, in subject matter of anything that may be anything outside of normal. ufology, or the paranormal subjects in general, anything like that, that there is enough knowledge there. We know who's connected to who, and all these intelligence agencies have dossiers and can easily track and follow the cycles of what it takes to get people alarmed, that it can be initiated. And you get enough insanity going, it just cascades. I think one of the, that's part of the study that I did, that I mentioned earlier on that subject matter, that we've seen it take place. And we see this actually take place when it comes to the introduction of, say, a movie. We call that guerrilla marketing. And so, yes, anything can be done. You've heard of Project Bluebeam, which we've heard about for years, where they put holographs in the sky. But it's more complicated.
Project Bluebeam?
Project Bluebeam, yeah. But you have to have a substrate. People think, well, you could just shoot that out of a watch that some CIA guy has. No, it doesn't work like that. It's far more complex.
Right.
You have to have a substrate. You have to have certain principles in play. And it takes some energy to make that work. They would use that, and they have used it, in as far as for putting objects in the sky between pilots, let's say, for instance, in dog fights or whatever. You could put something up temporarily to distract them. So that this stuff has been going on. Has it been, has it been perfected to the point that we could create an invasion? We could function with drones to the point that hell's bells, it does look like an invasion at times.
Right.
That's our new method.
I mean, take for instance.
Yeah.
So, as being mindful about like how MUFON does, and researching stories and finding the truth from the soil, right? Finding the gold in the soil being pushed around. If the governments were to do a fake alien invasion, how do you think people should kind of view it in a skeptical way? How would we what are some of the things that maybe we would look for to go, this is BS?
Probably what we've been going through just recently. In other words, take this last bout of what's been going on with a bit of salt, and realize it's a double-edged sword. There is really something going on that you will probably never know all the details on. I can assure you, you won't. You may get a tidbit of that information, but because it is going on, there could be an effort to do something else. In other words, you could always instigate another op when something is genuinely going on. Let's take COVID, okay? During the whole COVID scenario, there were other things implemented that may or may not have had any influence or any relevance to what was going on in the first place. And we're seeing that sorted out now. But yet, you did see social control like we've never seen before. And it wasn't scoffed at. Very few people were scoffing at it. Vast majority of people fell in line and cooperated and did exactly what was asked of them. And we would now, if you were to say 20 years ago, would you do something like that? And it would probably be, hell no, you got to be kidding. You mean I'm going to stop all my social activity? I'm not going to see my grandchildren? I'm not going to do this? I'm not going to do that? Come on. It isn't going to happen. You're dreaming. But yet it happened in an instance. And the funny thing about it is, it was only a few years ago, and it seems so far off, that we're now into this new mode of existence, and we now call it normal. But when we look back on what was normal, it's nothing remote as far as what it was.
Yeah.
Our past life.
All right. Well, it's kind of like I'm sorry, Sam. Kind of like in closing, would you say to the people that just sit back, relax, and we'll just see what happens from here on out, but just kind of relax and just watch what's going on?
Yeah, actually participate in just looking at the sky, loving your neighbor, and letting them be aware that we're not alone in this wonderful universe, and that, hey, I'm right next door, and let's depend upon each other. And we're a bunch of Americans. I don't care what color you are, what you believe in, what you think, and screw all the whole political stuff. That's just BS to begin with. It's dividing us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, another distraction.
Let's start looking for the things that unite us, not divide us. And on that, I thank you very much for having me back on, and hope to see you guys soon.
Oh, dude,
absolutely.
Yeah, Sam, we love having you on. Actually,
yeah, absolutely.
Your knowledge, you're a very good book of knowledge for us, and you help us out, and I appreciate you. I truly appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
And so do our viewers. I know that.
Yeah, so do our viewers. And you know what? You can catch Sam on a recent episode of Ancient Aliens. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, on Ancient Aliens, they didn't get me on there because I'm not prettier anymore. Since I'm not pretty, I didn't get on there.
Oh.
In fact, I haven't done any work with the History Channel in a while. I don't know why. But if they would like to see a couple of my absolutely wonderful and brilliant friends, please make sure to listen to the Ancient Aliens episode talking about MUFON, and they did such a fine job. And if by chance you do run across some of the old reruns of UFO Hunters, you're going to see me on there a couple of times. I worked on 5 of those episodes and actually cameoed in 2. Boy, there was a whole bunch of other ones every once in a while still go on with the Discovery Channel talking about the O'Hare case, which I was on, and I cameoed, of course, in those. So I hope to be working on some new projects. And and for those folks that would be interested, April the 29th, if you'd like to come down to our event at the Rock, Starve Rock, just send me an email and I'll give you some information. And that will be April the 29th, and Steve's going to be down there, and I don't know if anybody else going to join us, or...
So I'm going to check my calendar. I definitely want to come, because I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Steve, we had a great time last year.
We did.
They were talking about Area 51. It was just great. I have to admit, you guys had me from the beginning all the way to the end that we left.
Not a dull moment. Yeah.
Not a dull moment. I'm telling you right here now, ladies and gentlemen, they keep you captivated. That was actually my first one ever, and I just sat there, and I was just like, this is awesome, man. The knowledge. What was that man's name again?
At the end?
Don Schmidt.
Don Schmidt, man. I'm going to tell you, that guy there, one who had me, because he spoke for almost like 2 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
But you're totally captivated the whole time.
I was like, damn, this guy is good.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have 2 rooms, multiple subject matters going on, and we have one of the most remarkable trivia periods. It's a blast. We always have a great time. Of course, the lodge itself is a treasure. So is the whole community. It's beautiful. And the food, we have great food there down at the lodge. And so if you have the time, please come down. It's reasonable. It's not an expensive event, and you'll enjoy every minute.
Oh, no, not expensive at all for well-spoken people. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, come on out. You're going to have a very good time. And guess what? Me and Steve are going to probably be there, so you can come up to us and say hi if you want to, and just sit back and enjoy the great content that Sam always presents to people.
Thank you much. They can contact me at MUFON Sam1, MUFON Sam1, number 1, at gmail.com. And make sure to mention that you are a host, that you are part of this wonderful audience, and I'll make sure you get an extra ticket in our trivia contest to be picked.
I appreciate
the
that.
trivia.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was Mr. Sam Maranto, Illinois Director of MUFON. And there's Steve. Steve, say goodbye for everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
And as always, boys and girls, boo.